Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on News Moms Unscripted on the KATV Facebook page. Today, we are tackling the topic of sleep, specifically for kids now that they're back in school. And we all know that kids who get better sleep, that means mom and dad, you also get better sleep. We're excited to have Dr. Justin Voris here with Baptist Health. He's a family physician based out of Fort Smith. Doctor, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Listen, this is something that I'm personally struggling with right now. So I figured there must be other parents who are dealing with it also. We're about 3 weeks into the new school year. Every night it's about 8 o'clock. I'm tired. They're tired. Our patience is running thin, but bedtime negotiations are underway. They're trying to stay up as late as possible. So I thought we could give some parents some tips on sleep, good sleep, specifically for kids, and maybe identify some ways or help parents identify ways that their parents are having trouble falling asleep. So I guess, first of all, if you can just talk about the importance of your kids getting the right amount of sleep, but also good sleep and why that's so important.
Yeah, sleep pretty much varies from age to age. Of course, newborns, they're getting a ton of sleep, and all the way to school age and up to 18, that sleep number decreases quite a bit. You're going from like 16 hours as a baby to maybe 8 hours as an 18-year-old. And so you can all ranges of the spectrum there. Really important to get good sleep because that's when brain development does happen and your brain gets rest and your body gets rest. So the hard going back into school is kind of like you said, is routine. You've got to get into the habit of getting into routine and making it a habit. So that's how early sleep patterns develop. And once you get into that habit and routine, it kind of falls in place most of the time.
So sometimes maybe it just takes a little bit longer than others, and maybe I'm one of those moms dealing with that. I feel like leading up to the start of school, they always say, start the bedtime routine a couple of weeks before school starts. And I feel like we did an okay job with that. We're still having trouble. So if you can, I guess just talk about some of the factors that could be causing a child to have difficulty getting to sleep.
Well, there could be a lot of different factors. Some of them are medical and some of them are not. I find that whenever there's a lot of stress in the household, whether that's parents or grandparents, families, multiple families might be living together, that can really impact children. And so not only do external factors like parents and friends, et cetera, and even schedules impact kids, diet is a huge thing that affects kids too. So if they're drinking a lot of caffeine or eating really late night or really big meals and things that are just not good for sleep hygiene, well, then they have more sleep issues. So not only setting a routine important, setting a dietary habit is good as well. So you really need to stay away from things like chocolate and processed foods and caffeinated drinks, whether that's Coke or tea or coffee. I'm always surprised when people tell me what they eat and they drink, and at times they actually eat and drink, and they pass that on to kids. So adults can actually be pretty good examples for children as well. So if the adults are doing it, kids tend to do it as well.
Yeah, especially those hours leading up to bedtime. I would imagine it's wise thing to limit the sugar intake before bedtime.
Oh, absolutely. You've got things to give you energy for a reason. So you don't need to eat a power bar and go to bed. That's not going to help you. You eat nutritious meals that are hearty and healthy for you at appropriate times. So
In
and
addition
then
to
the
diet,
other things you have to think about.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, so in addition to diet, you have to stay away from screen time or at least monitor screen time. So light plays an issue with our circadian rhythm. So if you're staring at a screen and it's really bright and it's really dark around you, well then the brain's kind of confused going, wait a second, I know that it's dark, but I'm also staring at something really bright. So your mind's kind of on that pathway of like, well, it must still be outside. It's time to stay awake. So limiting screen time, probably an hour or so before bedtime is a good idea. You can always do some things like read a book. Nobody really to read anymore, and people think reading is really pretty boring. But something simple like just reading is a good idea before bed. Taking a hot bath or a shower is another thing, and keeping those kind of things out of the room. So technology, I would keep TVs and tablets and phones. Just keep those things out of the room. So then, whenever you are in a calm and a peaceful environment, then you don't have to worry about, well, let me see who texts me now, or let me read something else before bed. This one time's not going to hurt. And one time's probably not going to hurt, but you got to get into the habit. So if you have a habit in your one time turns into two and two turns four, etc.
You mentioned the circadian rhythm, which I've read a little bit about it. It's very interesting. And you were talking about the artificial light coming off of the screens and how detrimental that can be to your quality of sleep, especially close to bedtime. If you can talk a little bit about sunlight and exposure to enough sunlight and getting exercise during the day, how important those two things also are when it comes to getting quality sleep.
Yeah. So I like kids to be kids. I think it's important I don't care your shape or size. I want you to be a kid. We've lost the art of conversation. So a lot of kids don't get out and they don't go in their neighborhoods and they don't walk. And we live in this kind of fear of the unknown in this world. But I think appropriate supervision outside is still good because that gets parents involved. That gets parents out walking with their kids and teaching them, good outdoor behavior habits. And so exercise is huge in kids. So they need to get out, they need to play, they need to ride bikes, they need to be kids. I think that's absolutely vital. And sunlight obviously is really good for you. Too much, that's bad. We know that. And you're supposed to wear sunscreen in appropriate times and appropriate seasons. But just getting out and getting some vitamin D going in your body is appropriate for the right people. There's always going to be those caveats of people that are on medicine or, they get out with certain medical conditions, but when it's appropriate, when it's right, get out, be a kid, be happy.
I know there are some parents who may turn to over-the-counter sleep aids, such as melatonin. I've heard about a lot of moms giving their kids these melatonin gummies at night. What are your
Right.
thoughts on that? Is it healthy? Is it dangerous? Is it something that may be good um, just a few times, or is that something someone should do long term? What are your thoughts on that?
It's probably not a long-term solution. It's probably okay in the short term. You'll see things like Benadryl. And so things like that are okay short term. If you're having to do something long term, probably worthwhile to have a discussion with your doctor about it because you don't really need it long term. Again, there's certain conditions where maybe you need short term, but there's not one FDA approved medication or supplement um, that, that is out there for children. So that kind of limits anything that you can give to over-the-counter products. The other kind of issue with that is that you don't really know what you're getting because it's not regulated by the FDA. There are some aspects to it. If the pill says it's 5 milligrams, well, in average it could be 5 milligrams, but one pill might have 8 or 10, and the next pill might have 2. So you're assuming that they're all correct, and for the most part, they tend to be fairly correct. But again, we don't know 100%.
Yeah. So maybe on occasion, but use caution for sure. Definitely not
Yeah.
long term. Yeah. Um, you mentioned some age groups earlier and how much kids at certain ages, how much sleep they should be getting. If you can talk a little bit about that more in depth with the specific ages, and because there may be parents wondering how much sleep is my kid supposed to be getting, and they don't really know. So I know it's different for babies, kids who are in grade school, and teenagers. So what are the differences there? How much should each age group be getting in sleep each night?
Yeah, and it really does kind of vary from elementary to middle to high school. In probably elementary, we're looking at closer to 10 hours of sleep, 10, 11, something like that. Middle school, you're starting to get between 8 and 10, and then high school, you're between 7. I really like 7, but 7's probably still within okay limits. Between 7 and 9 hours. You have to look at schedules too. We're so busy these days, and when do kids get to study, and when do they actually get to sleep? So that plays into some of this well. So you've got sports schedules where, like last night, we had a trip up to Bentonville because of the conference that we're in for 8th grade volleyball. So that's an hour and a half road trip. And so did my daughter have time to do homework on the bus? Maybe. But there's all those extra factors too of someone's talking over here and thinking about the game. And so there's lots of things like that whenever it comes to sports play and schoolwork as well.
Yeah.
So
Families
you
are
got to
busy.
get it when you can.
Yeah, families are busy these days for sure. It
Yeah.
seems like, we never used to really talk about this being a problem. Do you think that's because the screen time, the iPads, the phones, the TV has just become such a big part of our kids' lives that really is the main reason kids aren't getting the quality sleep that they should?
Uh, I think it comes within reasonable limits. I think that it plays into it, but as humans, we're complicated, we're complex, and I think that screen time does affect. It's kind of like fluorescent lights, right? Fluorescent lights do affect you in some capacity. It's not normal, natural daylight. But I think screens are just part of the equation. I don't think it's the full picture because you have diet, you have exercise, you have habit, you have family stressors, you have medical conditions like anxieties and depressions and other behavioral things. So it's probably not the solo reason.
Well, if there are any parents who are watching, and if I would imagine that there are times where a parent should know, okay, this is something more serious than just someone being off their schedule or maybe having too much sugar. At what point should a parent maybe seek out help from a doctor if they really can't get their kid the amount of sleep that they feel like they should?
If you're going for prolonged periods of days without sleep, that's not normal, right? And so if a kid is saying, "Hey, look, I haven't slept in 2 days," and their behavior's starting to show it, well, that's worthwhile to go and see somebody out. If they're starting to have issues at school where they're failing, and they were a straight A student, and all of a sudden now they're getting D's and F's, and that's not normal either. Or some of the things that you're trying over the counter. Hey, look, this worked really well for a while, but now it's not working so good. And I don't know why. Is there something else going on? Are there metabolic conditions that are medical conditions that need to be discussed with a physician, with a doctor? And so there's a couple of things where you go, hey, look, I think that moms have this great intuition, moms are just almost always right. So when a mom or a dad comes in and says, "Hey, something is going on with my kid, and I know something's off," I believe them.
Well, if you were to give parents maybe 3 or 4 takeaways, some tips for better sleep for the whole family, what would those be?
So probably routine. I would set a routine and keep a routine. I think that that's probably one of the most important things that you can do, where you say, hey, 9 o'clock or 9:30 every night, this is whenever we're going to go to bed, or that's when we're going to wind down and we're going to go to bed, and that's it. Like that's part of it. So you set that routine, especially for younger children, because whenever they get in the habit early on, they'll get into that habit at a young age and carry that through their teen years and into adulthood. And I think that diet is probably number two. I would avoid any caffeinated beverages, and make sure that you're eating less processed foods if you can. I think that that's probably a good idea. And then probably number three is to get reasonable outdoor experience slash exercise, if you will. Just get out and be outside and be a kid and be happy. Another thing that we probably think or we probably forget about is just home life conditions. Certain stressors affect kids, especially in the heat of summer. Let's just say everybody's getting along great, but then maybe the electricity goes out. Well, is a kid sleeping in a really hot house, or they didn't have enough water that day, or certain things along with diet. So there's some other external factors. That's probably number 4 if you could, lump that in there. So I think all of that, there's probably not one right answer to any of this. And everybody's going to have their own opinion about it all, and that's okay too. But there's some kind of underlying things. If you can just get kind of the base of it all pretty close, then I think that you're fairly successful.
Yeah, probably a combination of all of it. We appreciate your time today and you sharing your knowledge on this, and hopefully it'll help parents help their kids get a little bit more quality sleep. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Have a great day.
Hey, thanks for your time.
Yeah,
This was good. Hopefully you get what you need out of it.
absolutely. I did. It was perfect. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. So if you need anything ever again, just holler.
Okay.
I'm an open book, and whatever I can do to help.
Will do.
I've got 3 kids myself, so
I know that's what they
been
said.
down this road.
We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Beth Hunt here. Thanks for checking out the KATV YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click the subscribe button. And don't forget to download the KATV News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.